This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Festivus for the rest of us. Hello, Team PYP. So good to be with you this week as we celebrate winter solstice and gratitude for friends and family and cookies and love, even if it has to be at distance. I wanted to share a couple of updates with you in today's episode and then get into the depth of my content. First, I want to give you an update where at my unsubscribe jar, if you've been listening for a while, you know that back in November, I committed to unsubscribing from email lists that were no longer interesting to me or were clogging up my inbox because the sender bombarded me with multiple messages a day, which you all understand can get really annoying really fast. And so as of today, December 23rd, 2020, I have $21 in total in this jar, which means I have successfully unsubscribed from 84 lists. That's right, 84 lists. And I still have more to go. But we're running out of time because I attached this goal to buying a holiday gift for a local child in need. And I decided, since I'm matching the amount that's in the jar, so now I have a total of $42, I'm going to spend $21 on a boy and $21 on a girl and call it good and feel great about it, because that's just something that it feels really, we all win. We all win. So I'm splitting the monies and getting two presents, and I'm excited about it. I will share with you on a future episode what I exactly bought. I don't know yet. There's a local independent toy store in my community, which makes me happy. On a side note, I was reading on LinkedIn that the toy industry has had a banner year because parents are guilt buying toys for their children because they feel so awful about what's happened to them with schools being closed and online exclusively. And so apparently toys are just skyrocketing out the doors, and a lot of places are out of the popular ones. I don't have little children anymore, so I'm not even sure what the hot toys are this year. I do know that for older kids, the new Xbox is high on the list. My nephew, who is 15, is going to get one of these for Christmas. And I know he doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can share that openly and not worry about the surprise being spoiled. So anyway, it's a nice thing to do. And again, it's a win-win for all of us. Now I have a quick promotional announcement. Early bird pricing for my leadership program for women called Elevate Your Expertise is now available. I'm offering 2 cohorts this spring, one that meets on Tuesdays, one that meets on Thursdays. It starts the first week of March, so you have plenty of time to plan. Elevate Your Expertise is for women only. So guys listening, if you know any women who have a lot going for them, they're experts in their field, but they haven't stepped out yet to share themselves and their wisdom, their insights, and their experiences in a bigger way through thought leadership, send them to check out Elevate Your Expertise. And women listening, come on. This program is super awesome. It's even more awesome right now because you can save $600 off the full price of admission now through January 15th, 2021. If you happen to be listening to this episode after January 15th, 2021, then the price will have gone back up, but still a fantastic bargain considering all that you get out of this dynamic virtual leadership mastery program that is not DIY. You actually get to work with others and me and not slog through a ton of videos on your own by yourself. It is dynamic. It is experiential. It is phenomenal. So much better when you can be with the others. Go to pyppodcast.com/EYI21. That is pyppodcast.com/EYE21 to check it out. And again, guys, pass it on to the women you love because it just might be a great fit for them. Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled program. The title of today's episode is aptly called This Site Can't Be Reached, Reflections on the Things That Make Us Go Doh and Other End of 2020 Unfortunate Events, Discombobulations, and Bewilderments. Where this came from is I discovered that the link in my email signature led anyone clicking on it to the oh-so-embarrassing "This site can't be reached" message. Why did this happen? Well, because a couple of months ago, I added an S to the HTTP part of the URL for my website. So, updating my website to the HTTPS handle, which is a good thing, means anywhere I had the old HTTP with no S handle would lead people to the message, "This site can't be reached." Okay, again, palm to the forehead moment, channeling Homer Simpson. Lots of those this year for lots of people. I see it metaphorically. This site can't be reached seems to be a fitting message for a year that couldn't be reached in the way that we thought. It wasn't anything like anyone imagined. I think back to a year ago, this time I had big plans. I was super excited. I was getting ready to sign a couple of giant clients that were going to change the bottom line to my business in 2020. And we were off to the races. In all fairness, we were off to the races in January and February. And then what happened? The brakes slammed on in early March. And since then, 2020 has been, let's just say, challenging. That's a fair statement. It pushed us into corners we didn't even know existed, right? At least that's how I feel when I talk to people, is so many people are saying, I have experienced things this year that I never in a million years imagined I would experience. And yet, here we are. And I don't want to dwell on the negative because there's been a lot of negative in 2020. Rather, I want to look back on all the good things that have come out of a crazy year. So if you will allow me to share 5 things in no particular order, little triumphs that add up to big wins as 2020 comes to a close, and we look ahead to 2021. After I share each one, I'm going to ask you a question to consider, and then I'll recap the questions after I share these 5 things. So if you're ready, here we go. Number 1. 2020 was a year of massive letting go of old narratives, old stuff sitting around the house, old arrangements of rooms in my house, old furniture and clothes that no longer align with the me I am becoming. Those are now donated and gone. There is fresh paint on almost every wall in the house. The pantry completely reorganized and rebuilt from the ground up. I look around this house. I look around my home office. I did a couple of small things. I bought myself an inexpensive ring light because I'm shooting more videos. I moved my desks into new situations because I've been on a ton more Zoom calls, as we all have, and I wanted the natural light of my windows to complement my setup versus having them behind me, which we all know looks awful. You don't want to be backlit and be a silhouette on a Zoom call. So I gave a lot of stuff away. Like I mentioned, old furniture, old clothes. I boxed up things that have been in this house since we moved here over 3 years ago that I'd never done anything with. And I made decisions about those. And many of that stuff is now donated and gone. My question to you is, what would you like to let go of as you transition out of 2020 into the new year? Number 2, firm decisions made about the direction of my business. This was unexpected because, like I said, I went into 2020 with some big clients. I was ready to roll up my sleeves and do a year's worth of work with them. And instead, when the brakes came on in March and I lost all my business, I realized I had this amazing expanse of time that I could use to do some deep reflection on what I do and who I serve. And that led me to be able to say, I inspire, I teach, I guide, I write, I podcast. And I can add to that also, there is huge value in what I do. And I see that clearly now, and I own it. There's no more mystery. There's no more doubts, coloring the edges of my professional existence. I know what I do. I know I do it well. And that is powerful. I just don't think I would have reached this point had it not been for the pandemic shutting everything down and taking my business away from me and pushing me into the corner where I got the download from the universe saying, okay, Mary Lou, this is a gift. Use it. Use it as a gift. So my question to you, team, is what's one thing that you do really well that is your gift to the world, that you totally own about yourself, and it adds value to the world and makes a difference to others? Now, number 2 leads me to number 3. I would not have hit 300 episodes here at PYP on July 9th, 2020, had it not been for the pandemic. If you've been listening to me for a while, you've heard me talk about this. If you're new to the show, back in May, I realized, I did the math, that I was close enough to 300. And given that I had all this time, I could make a push. I stretched myself. I made a chart, which I never do. I opened up a calendar and reverse engineered by the day, and I stayed the course. I hit 300. Now this will be episode, I think, 338, and I'm already looking ahead to 2021. I'm going to hit 400 by mid-year, and that is exciting. It's a big goal. I know I can do it, and because it isn't so mysterious anymore, it isn't as big as hitting 300. That was my big stretch. So my question for you is, what is a big goal, or as my coach likes to say, a stretch goal that you hit this year? How could hitting that goal now inform another big goal for you next year? Number 4, I invested in my self-education through a few exceptional programs. Some of you listening are people I met in one of those incredible programs created by Seth Godin. I am already seeing massive returns from the efforts that I've put in to my self-education. And I just dropped an episode all about self-education a couple of weeks back. And let me tell you, self-education works. Working with a coach works. Taking time to list out the things you don't yet know and would like to learn about yourself, about your capacity, about a topic. There has never been more available for the self-education junkie, for lack of a better term, someone who wants to learn. There's so much opportunity. The challenge is sifting and sorting through the massive opportunities to find the gems, to find the programs that are actually going to deliver to you what they say. But at the end of the day, the results are going to be a reflection of how much work and time you invested into not just learning the material, but applying it. So my question to you is, what would you like to learn in the next 3 to 6 months? Who can help you learn it? Finally, number 5, this was a year that I made peace with the way things are this year. It's not like any other years. We can all agree on that. And that's okay. For example, this year we bought a tiny tree instead of a big one, probably because I was traveling for the first 3 weeks of December. And it didn't make sense to go buy a giant tree with only 3 days left before Christmas. So we bought ourselves a tiny tree, and I put a fraction of my ornaments on it and a couple of strings of lights. And I'll tell you, it is fantastic. I love sitting in my chair looking over at the tiny tree. It's symbolic. It makes the room feel cheerful and festive. I'm also not putting out all my holiday decorations. Instead, I've picked a few favorites, including my Advent cabin, which has 24 little drawers or doors that you open up, and inside is each of these little cubbies is a ceramic woodland creature like a fox and a hedgehog and a rabbit, and there's an eagle and a blue jay and a cardinal, and there's a wreath and a goose, and on and on and on. And I've had this since my kids were small. I love it. It sits in my living room, and it just is one of those things that makes me feel like it's the holidays. But my bins of nutcrackers, my bins of Santas, my bins of polar bears and snowmen and little snow globes, they're not coming down this year, and that's okay. I'm enjoying the lights on other people's houses. Some people in my neighborhood go absolutely gangbusters with these amazing displays. Also knowing that my kids are safe and with good people, that it's okay. They're not going to be with me on Christmas Day. It's the first time in our lives we're not going to be together on Christmas Day. We will have plenty of times in the future to get together. I'm going to be celebrating Christmas with my daughter in January. My son may pop over at some point, but again, because of the way the world is right now, people are taking extra precautions. I respect that and accept that. So my question for you is, who or what would you like to make peace with as the year comes to a close? So to review the questions that I asked, here is the list. Feel free to pause after each one if you want to write them down, or go ahead and process them. You can come back to this, listen to it again. These are questions that I have found really valuable to take 15, 20 minutes and think through. Number 1, what would you like to let go of as you transition out of 2020 into the new year? Categories to include would be physical items as well as mental and emotional. Number 2, what's one thing you do really well that you totally own about yourself that adds value to the world and makes a difference to others? Number 3, what's a big goal you hit this year, and how could it inform another big goal for you next year? Again, think about stretching for something. Number 4, what would you like to learn in the next 3 to 6 months, and who can help you learn it? And finally, number 5, who or what would you like to make peace with as the year comes to a close, so that you head into 2021 with that off your plate? This time of year lends itself naturally to reflection, and I hope you find some or all of these questions useful as you think about where you've been, where you're going, and what you want next. It's been a great year at the Play Your Position podcast. I will do an end of the year roundup right before January 1st. So for now, remember to check out the Elevate Your Expertise program, pyppodcast.com/EYE21. There is a link in the show notes. You can poke it from your smartphone and it'll take you directly to the page. And finally, my final message of this holiday week is to grant yourself some grace these last 2 weeks of 2020, because you deserve that. You deserve that. This is Mary Lou Kaiser. Happy holidays, everyone. Remember, it is always a great day to get out there and play your position. We'll see you next time.
Got a great key offensive strategy you like to share? Write to us at coach@pyppodcast.com or on Twitter, use hashtag PYP and let us know how you're running your ball into the end zone for those game-winning touchdowns.